Okay, we are recording. Hi, I'm Greg Moore. Today we're going to have a bit of a look at the most commonly used tool in the workshop. That's our drill press. The drill press is something that we can use for putting holes in many types of materials: timber, aluminium, mild steel, stainless steel, you name it. But if you don't know how to use the drill press properly, you're going to end up either hurting yourself or damaging the material or breaking some drill bits. So hopefully by the end of today's short video we'll have a much better understanding about the drill press. Now, one of the most important things about the drill press is the correct speed to be using. The drill press, this is a very simple one, has just 3 speeds. Now before you test or check anything to do with the speeds or make any adjustment to any tool in the workshop, it's important to make sure you can see this power lead. So I've got that power lead in my hand, it's disconnected. Otherwise you're going to end up mangling your hand in one of these pulleys if the machine accidentally starts. The machine's capable of, at the moment it's set for 580 RPMs. I've got the smallest spindle pulley on the motor and the largest one on the shaft that drives the chuck. The middle position, so from this position to this position, goes to 1300 RPM, and the top position, which is the largest pulley on the motor and the smallest pulley on the spindle chuck, is 2700 RPM. And there's no way knowing that you'd want to be using a drill bit that's as big as this one here on 2700 RPM. You'd have a very nasty accident if you did try and use that with either timber or with steel. 2700 RPM is for a drill bit this size, about 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters, and smaller. The middle speed, 1300 RPM, something about this size, maybe up to about 3/8 of an inch. As soon as you get to something like this, which is 1/2 inch or 13 millimeters, or maybe even 25 millimeters, you need to be using a very low speed. And the low speed on this machine only goes to 580 RPMs. It's a very small machine. It's not really designed to drive a 1/2 inch drill bit like this. This 1/2 inch drill bit has been sold to go into a smaller chuck such as this, and this is only a very small motor. It's about 1/4 horsepower motor. You really need something like a 1/2 to 3/4 horsepower motor on a machine and a lower speed to be able to use a drill bit like that. But you can get away with it with a little bit of caution, making sure it's clamped down correctly. Okay, that's the speed setting on the machine. Well, not quite. One more thing about the speed setting. To adjust it, we have to loosen the motor on the machine. The motor is spring loaded on this particular machine, and then we can move the pulley to the next position. There's the pulley up 1 notch, up another notch. So there the pulley's set in the middle. Now I do not want to tension that motor so tight that I've got no deflection in those belts, because if I do that, I risk, if I get a jam in the chuck with the drill bit sticking in some work, there's no give in the top section of the power train. So I like to make sure that I've got plenty of slop in that belt when I tighten that up. So I nip that motor back up and I've got plenty of slop there in that shaft. The device, the machine, is currently set to 1300 RPM. Alright, before we use the machine, before we plug this machine in and use it, some other really important things to know about the machine and about your personal safety. You notice 10 fingers. Never wear personal protection equipment like these gloves. If you wear gloves, to work with lumber or sharp steel, hey, that's great, you'll protect your hands. But using gloves on anything that has a rotating blade or a rotating shaft like this, especially with sharp projections like teeth on drill bits, the teeth on the drill bit can dig into the fabric of the glove. Even these are high flex gloves, the best quality gloves you can probably buy. The drill bit will dig into the fabric and it will pull your hand into the machine, doing some very nasty injuries to you. It's important, never ever wear gloves as PPE when you're using a drill press like this. They are definitely a no-no. So we take those off and we put them right out of the way. Good for handling lumber, but no good for working with machines like this. The most commonly used piece of PPE that you should be thinking about with a drill press is some safety glasses. Now, in my case, I wear spectacles for close work, so I wear safety goggles like this. These are protective safety. I also have a pair of DeWalt. I love them because they have air vents around them and they don't fog up even when I'm using a respirator. Very important to use eye safety with a drill press, because when you're drilling, one tiny little chip might fly up into your eye, then you're going to be finding yourself in the ER room having emergency surgery to take something out of the eye. You don't want to go there and have that happen. So it's so easy to prevent. Just wear safety eye protection. Now, depending what you're drilling, even mild steel, when you're lubricating the drill bit to keep it cool, it's going to give off oil fumes. What sort of oil have you used? Are those fumes harmful to your health? Perhaps they are. Are you drilling timber like birch or oak, and the fumes and the dust from the timber are also toxic? Well, you want to think about wearing some respirator safety. Now, if I'm going to wear a respirator, I don't want to wear a beanie. I don't want dust and stuff all through my beanie either. If I'm going to wear a respirator, that means there's dust in the air. I don't want this. So, respirator. This is a standard 3M Model 6000 series respirator. I wear this when I'm doing any work that generates dust or fumes. You've got to think about safety with what you're breathing in. Very important to wear a respirator. Today we're only going to be drilling some pine. We're not going to be creating any fine dust, so today I won't be wearing the respirator. By the way, PPE like respirators and safety goggles, maybe even hearing protection, I like to keep in a dust-proof box. You don't want to just leave it out in the open. You don't know what environmental hazards are around that are going to find their way into the PPE. And you don't want to be putting on a respirator that's had some asbestos particles or something find their way into it. So keep the stuff in a dust-proof box. Alright, safety goggles. Do we need hearing protection with a drill press? If the drill press is making so much noise that you need hearing protection, I really think that you're doing something wrong. So generally, even though we've got some nice 3M hearing protection here, I don't think I've worn hearing protection with a drill press. It's always nearby anyway. Lots of tools need hearing protection. So, no gloves, eye goggles. Are we ready to power it on? First of all, make sure the switch is turned off. The power is off on the drill press. We plug the power in. Okay. Tools for the drill press. I've got the chuck key. Lots of drill presses today have cordless chucks, which are great. They're very safe compared to a keyed chuck, because a keyed chuck, a lot of institutions have banned keyed chucks because people in the past have left the key in the chuck and turned the power on, and of course you can imagine the chuck coming back at the operator at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Quite a deadly thing to do. For that reason, I made a key holder which sits up here neatly, and I don't turn the machine on unless I can see where that chuck is. And what else have I got up there? Ah, yes, I keep this spanner up here as well. This spanner is used for tightening the vise on the drill press. When you're drilling things, especially with a large drill bit, you've got a lot of rotational torque, and that's going to want to turn that workpiece around. The chuck is coming towards me, and it's going to turn the workpiece around into the shaft on the drill press and then back at me. And if you're not holding something down firmly, you're going to wear it, especially if it's a large piece. And if it's a piece of a flat steel sheet, which you probably shouldn't be drilling steel sheet on a drill press anyway, but if it's not clamped and secured properly, it's going to come back and it's going to slice your hand clean open. So always thinking, can the work move when I'm drilling it? And of course the sad thing is, the larger the hole that you want to put in it, the more the possibility of the workpiece spinning around out of control. Alright, I've got this set, as you saw, to 1300 RPM. So I'll set the, I'll put that middle size drill bit into the chuck. I'll tighten it up. And spin it around by hand, make sure that there's no obstructions, and then I'll turn it on. Note also, no long sleeves, even though it's winter time here, hence the beanie. No long sleeves, no jewellery, no long sleeves, no watch, and especially no gloves. Alright, I'm pretty happy with how that looks. There's no way I would try and hold that piece of timber just sitting on the platform of the drilling machine by hand. Even with a small drill bit like that, it's probably not too dangerous, but I've got a vise. If I can, I will always use a vise or a piece of clamping equipment to clamp that down. I'll tighten the vise up and it can't move. Okay. Now, what I have seen people do in YouTube and in the workshop is while this is spinning, they've just made a hole and you've got all this swarf, be it hot metal shavings or in this case be it timber, and then get their fingers in here and move the hot chips out of the way. No. Turn the drill press off before you go near that rotating bit and do this. Just use something else to get them out of the way. You're going to reach a stage where you get a little bit too much junk there, so then it becomes necessary to maybe use a shop vac. And you can just clean the work up as you're going with the shop vac. You must be thinking all the time, what possibility, what's the risk of getting my hand caught around this moving part? So I want to eliminate that risk, and I do that by first stopping the machine, and second using something else to get the dust out of the way. Even these flutes and the teeth at the front of the drill bit are very sharp, and I don't want to risk a cut injury by going near those. Right, I'm going to turn the drill press off, and I'm going to put the larger capacity drill bit in. And I'm going to show you using the larger capacity drill bit. A couple of things here. The larger capacity drill bit is quite long, and first thing we notice, I can't easily use the vise on the drill table with the drill bit. Look, it won't fit. So I've really got to get that vise out of the way. Clutter. We don't want clutter while we're working. I want to get that vise out of the way, and I'm going to put this piece of timber here. And look, I've got this other problem now. I can't reach the piece of timber, so I couldn't use it with the vise. I can't use it when the vise is spun out of the way. So it's a case of I'm going to have to use the tools and move this right out of the way. We still can't do it. Okay, we still can't do it. That being the case, we'll have to double stack that. And of course, this is where the potential comes in for someone wanting to hold that by hand while we're drilling it, and that would result in a disaster, especially with a 1/2 inch drill bit like this. So we have to use a clamping method, something that we can hold that down. Okay, that's pretty tight. It's pretty tight. It's not the best clamp that I can come up with, but it's a clamp. I've lifted the vise up and I've got the vise sitting on top of it. The wood's double chocked. It's not going to move. Okay, it's at the wrong speed. It's at 1300 RPM. Let's turn it on. Can you hear it chattering? It's way too fast. The drill bit rotation is way too fast for this size drill bit. Alright, so what I'm going to have to do is unplug the drill, and then I'm going to have to loosen the motor and put this down on the lowest speed. Then tighten the motor again, making sure that I've got plenty of slack in the belt. The machine's unplugged. Plug the machine back in. Check everything. Now it's on 580 RPM. 580 RPM for this size drill bit is still a fraction too fast if it was steel. If it was steel, it probably needs about 350 RPMs. For timber, yeah, probably about 500 RPM. 580, just a fraction too fast. Look how well that's drilling now. It's drilling much smoother. There was no vibration. The chips that are coming out, I can look at the chips, and more so than being chips, they're little scrolls of timber, just like I'd been using a wood plane or something around it. The flutes on the drill are much cooler than what they would have been had I been using the higher speed as well. And overall, it's just a much improved speed to use. Now, I'm going to turn the drill off, and I'm going to take that drill bit out, and I'm going to move the workpieces around, and I'm going to demonstrate one other drill bit which is common on the market today. Not as common as some others, but is something that you will encounter. Use this side. And that's this Speedball bit. Now I'll bring this up to the camera. And it's quite a short bit, and it has 3 teeth on the outside. It's only high-speed steel, it's not tungsten, so it's not designed to be used at high speeds, even though the packet says it's high speed and it's made of high speed steel. A tungsten bit you can always run at a much higher cutting speed than you can with high speed steel. Now I'm going to put this into the machine. Make sure it's all nice and square. Turning well, good. Double check, got the lowest speed. This particular drill bit, I wouldn't even attempt to run at 1300 RPM. At 1300 RPM, it would lift the piece of timber out of this, even though it's clamped down. It would have a tendency to lift it up and really do some nasty things with it. This particular type of drill bit, it has a little screw action here in the center that pulls it down into the work, and it actually pulls it in to allow the 3 teeth on the outside to cut through the material. It's not a drill bit which likes to be lifted back out of the work, and if you try and lift it back out of the work, it'll try and pull the work back at you and spin the work around. So this is a very dangerous type of drill bit if it's not used correctly, especially on a cordless drill. And you've got to really know what you're doing with the cordless drill, because the cordless drill will have a tendency to twist in your hands and hurt you, or it'll, like I said, lift the workpiece up and spin the piece around. All right, let's see how we go. I don't know whether you'll see it on the video. It'll want to pull itself down into the timber. Aha! Perfect demonstration. You've got to be ever so careful with a drill bit like this. Now, what I did there, and I'll just disconnect the power. I haven't tightened up the clamp on the back of the shaft, the main shaft for the machine. So there was a tiny little bit of play there, and it picked the work up straight away and it locked it. Can you imagine if it wasn't in the vise, what it would have done? It would have spun that work around violently. Okay, let's lock that vise down. Open our vise up a little bit. Let's get that out. No, probably the safest way to do that, and thinking safety all the way here, is to lift this back up . No, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. Okay. That screw action, it wants to unscrew itself from the work. Alright. I'll make sure this is nice and tight this time. little bit off center from where I was before. Maybe I'll try and put that around so that we're in the mark. Yes, there we are. Okay, this is not a drill bit that the machine likes to use. There's much better drills on the market, and that's why I did demonstrate this drill today. It's a drill that will grab the timber and try to pull the timber up into the drill. Or if you're holding a cordless drill, pull you into the timber. So you've really got to be holding the drill carefully. Alright, so we won't play with that drill anymore today. Just quickly go back to our normal drill. And other types of clamps that you can use, knowing how important it is now about clamping the work down. There's always a clamp for the job. It's tightened up. There we are, drilling it safely. So clamp it. Always clamp the work, and always be aware of particularly nasty drill bits like this one here, which I bought this some time ago for a job. It's a 25mm drill bit. I've never used it after I saw what it did. There's spade bits which are far superior to this, even though that the manufacturer of this criticised the spade bits, which have two cutting bits on the outer skirts, and said this is superior because it's got three. It's almost impossible to use. So I'll chuck that to the side. Oh, look, there is, before I finalise the video, there is one more bit of safety that I failed to say earlier, and that is having clutter on the workbench. And if that clutter drops down while you're doing some work on the drill press or any piece of equipment, it causes a distraction, and that one moment of distraction is enough to cause an accident. So you shouldn't really have any clutter around, and you shouldn't have anything that's going to cause you to sort of look up and in astonishment, amazement, what the heck was that? That tiny moment of distraction is enough to cause some serious harm. Okay, I hope that was interesting. That's Drill Press 101. How to set the speed on the machine, and how to clamp the work down safely, and the different speeds, and how important it is to use different speeds, the right speed for the right size drill bit. Small drill, high speed, Medium-sized drill, medium speed, large drill, probably the lowest speed that the machine can handle. This has been Greg Moore. Thanks, bye.